Hi, welcome to the press conference for the world premiere of A River Runs Through It. We have at the far end of the table the executive producer of the film, Mr. Jake Eberts. There is an empty chair for Richard Friedenberg, who's the scriptwriter. He's on the way down. He'll join us in a few seconds. Next to him is Emily Lloyd, who plays Jesse Burns in the film. Brad Pitt, who plays Paul McLean. In the middle, Mr. Robert Redford, who is the producer of the film and the director. Craig... We have a recorded message from someone up here, someone's tape recorder. Craig Sheffer plays Norman McLean, and Tom Skerritt plays Reverend McLean, and right next to me is Mr. Patrick Markey, who produced the film as well, who'd like to open the press conference with a question. Yes. Yeah.
Do you feel the same kind of mystical connection with Utah and the characters in the film that you have with Montana, with the land?
Well, I don't think the characters in the... Are you talking about the actors or the characters in the film? Characters in the film, I don't think thought of it in any mystical sense. They lived in a time and a place when I think that was more or less taken for granted. I think all that reflection on the environment and the reflection on the place has come later, or when someone leaves their home and then comes back to it. So yes, I view Utah today the way I view Montana today. But I can't view Utah the way I think these people view Montana, because I didn't grow up in Utah. I adopted Utah because I thought it was a beautiful place to live. But I could not treat it the way they did because they grew up in it.
Peter. Okay, sorry, then you.
Okay, right. Specifically to Mr. Redford and Mr. Skerritt, the relationship between fathers, the father and the two sons, the film is sort of like pivotal. Could you just talk about whether you feel that the relationship is a good role model for fathers raising their sons today?
Tom, you want to take that?
Bob, you want to take that? Is it a role model? Yeah. Of what was, I think it's exemplary of a generation that's gone. I don't think it's a role model for, from my standpoint, no, I don't think it's exemplary for a present-day father to behave that way. My father was somewhat like that. And I think what I came away with from that experience was how not to be. And I'm much more open and demonstrative with my children. So I don't know an answer to that question. I don't think he was a role model for today's father.
I think pretty much agree with Tom. I think that there was a lot of that I was raised with. Not the way it was in the film. It's certainly not autobiographical for myself, but there was enough of my own life to recognize something in the characters in the film. I think that the fact that the father raised his sons that way had a lot to do with the ethic of time and place. The family lived closer to nature than most of us do today, therefore they had to develop very strong physical skills in order to deal with it, so that was one code that they lived by. And the other, that in the business of education wasn't as available to people as it is today, and there wasn't that much access to it. So the father took it on himself to instruct his own children. That I happen to like. I believe in that, and I believe in education being communicated through families and family history. That I believe in. As to the way it was done, and as to the fact that it was at the exclusion of other aspects of life, I'm not in approval of. The idea that there was only one way to achieve, or very, very few ways to achieve grace in order to achieve salvation, I do not approve of. But some of the discipline I do, because I think it bears a kind of strength we can be proud of. I think God knows there's enough posturing about that pride today, and in politics, you see a lot of people posturing all this pride about how great it is to be strong and tough, when in fact they're neither. And so I think the true form of that, some of that discipline, I do think is not a bad thing. Other, I don't approve of, and I think we've moved past in our society. It's like looking at something antique in a museum, really.
Judy.
Mr. Redford, do you think of Mr. Bush as the environmental president?
Yeah.
I don't think
I think he's for the
Mr.
birds,
Bush.
if that's.
Yes, question here.
Mr. Redford, I know that we weren't supposed to see you in the film, but I wonder if there was a little bit of you in Brad, and wondered why I kept seeing him. I kept seeing you, the hair, the dimple, that whole look.
I don't have a dimple. Let me. I'll address that, and Brad can address the rest. There was in no way any intention to have any similar. I did not see any similarity. I wanted Brad for the part because of a quality he had as a person in the room with him, and those qualities are on the film. And I did not go at this with any intention of any crossovers having to do with me. I'm not objective enough about myself to be able to do that anyway. So that just wasn't a factor as far as I was concerned. If it's one for the viewer, then that's the viewer's business. But it was not, as far as I was concerned. It had purely to do with a quality as a person and as a performer that I thought would be very right for the film.
Brad?
Oh, man. It's just that when you attack a character, you attack it from the inside, and it comes out in whatever form it comes out.
Oh, I know that. I just was talking about the very physical similarity.
We can see how close we are
I know
here.
that.
Yes.
Mr. Redford, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your own experiences in terms of how old you were, how you first encountered the Norman MacLean novella, and also how you Friedenberg shaped the narrative. Because one of the criticisms of the Malaga was that a lot of the parallel stories never quite merged together. There was just a shapelessness to that. I wonder if you could talk about that.
Well, there's quite a lot of difference between the two projects. It was supposed to be that way. There was supposed to be a kind of chaos to the ensemble in Milagro. That was part of the point. Here, it's just entirely different. This is very tightly knit, very closely knit. As far as Richard and I think that, it'd be a good idea for other people to speak up. As Richard can talk about how he formed the screenplay. We had a lot of difficulty because, I'll just take it up to a point and he can take it, he can do the tough stuff. The first part was hard because when I met with Norman MacLean, his own ambivalence about wanting to let this go made it extremely difficult to get certain information out of him. He was very careful to deliver this, his affection and his love and his confusion and hurt about what happened had him deliver this material in a way that was not easy to break into a screenplay because he kept so many characters at distance. And he created the impression he was bringing you in when in fact he was not. So we had to break through that. There was the business of really the strongest element in the book really was his voice, the narrator's voice, and we were going to be starting without that. And what was that going to be like? Well, as soon as you no longer had his voice to guide you through, you ended up with very lean material. So we struggled around for a while until we finally came on a plan in which this thing fell into place.
What was the question? Yeah, I think that Norman's book is really a masterpiece, but it is very small. It's a short book, and half of the book is very detailed analyses of fly fishing, and what was left after that really was not enough for a film. And what made what made me able to expand on that was a research trip that I took shortly after Rob and I met. And I went and visited with Norman, and he was very ill and frail at the time. But his daughter and son-in-law, daughter Jean and son-in-law Joel, were extremely helpful and gave me an enormous amount of information. Then I went to Montana and found people who were Norman's contemporaries, and they also gave me a lot of information. So taking this book as a fictionalized biography and autobiography, I then expanded on what Norman left out, and that enabled us to then sort of take it the next step.
Yes?
Mr. Redford, I wonder how you feel the other day you registered on the Republican Family Values meter.
Well, I like to think the film is above politics, but since the Republicans seem to be so bereft of ideas this election, they have to stress so heavily family values. I'm afraid that they're going to make it into a cartoon to the point where people are going to be so sick of it they won't accept what's in this film that I think is of a real family nature, dealing with family values in a more realistic, deeper, meaningful way rather than putting it into either slogan or cartoon.
Mr. Redford, just tell us about Norman's emotions when he talked to him about the film, and I wonder if you ever went fishing with him as well.
No, we never had that chance. The whole time with Norman was spent in Chicago on the university campus where he had taught. We never met in Montana. We met first in Utah at my place, and then the rest of the time was in Chicago, so we never had that chance. And probably just as well, he probably would have been too critical.
Yes.
Mr. Redford, your film seems to echo a little bit certain themes of Robert Blythe's Iron John, whereby it's good to go back to the woods to discover what it means to hunt and fish and to discover your father again in order to realize what it means to be a man. This is not true, this is Robert Blythe. But what do you think of the men's movement of re-exploration of masculinity that is going on?
Well, I suspect it's in response to what's being taken away from us of a natural order. You know, when I was a kid, the natural environment was not talked about that way because it just was. It was there for you, it was available, it was not something that you had to go find. It was pretty much all around you, so you just went into it and did what you had to do. Now, as things get removed from our society that seem to have been staples from the past, we seem to be reaching out and trying to find ways to hold on to them. And now so many of them are just artificial. You know, people going to gyms to work out rather than do the labor outside. You have to go travel distances with special equipment to live in nature and so forth. So I think that's probably men's attempt to try to hold on to something primal that they need. Beyond that is psychoanalytical, and I just soon leave it alone.
Yes.
Mr. Eberts, I wonder how you found...
Someone asked me a question? Oh, this is great.
The question is what to do with it.
What am I doing here? I have no idea. What's your question?
I wonder how you got involved in the film. I see you as the exec producer.
Do you really want to know? I tried to buy the rights and learned that someone else had got there before me, and turned out that someone else was Robert Redford. And over a period of 2 or 3 years, I thought about it and kept hearing about other people making it with him, including a couple of independent companies. And one night I got home and there was a message on my machine saying, "Please call Robert Redford." I thought someone's pulling my leg. So I didn't for a day or two, but then I did. And sure enough, someone had told Bob that maybe I'd be interested in talking about other films, not about this particular film. And we met and had lunch, and we talked about riding and fishing and skiing and everything.
Money?
Money. His, not mine. And we didn't talk about River, because River at the time was in semi-pre-production. The money was being put up by Carolco. And then over the next couple of weeks or months, Carolco began to get pressures from other sources. I guess the budget of T2 helped. It went from 30 to 100. So that 70 was taken away from Bob, and he had to find someone else. And to make a long story short, we sort of slid into it. It was one of those lucky accidents of nature that come along in my business all too infrequently, and we ended up taking over the picture just as we started shooting.
in Montana, and it's been the most wonderful experience of my life. And if you believe that, you're in the right business.
Please.
Yes, this is very similar to the story in Happy City of Joy, where by coincidence you were looking for a story, and by coincidence, remember the story we told about? And now this is sort of a coincidence. What other coincidence are you working on?
Don't believe all the stories I tell you. My life is filled with them. It was the same way with Dances with Wolves and Driving Miss Daisy. And basically, I'm the guy that hangs around and waits till the little crumbs fall off the table. And the crumbs often turn out to be a big sandwich or a whole loaf. That's what I do. I'm very lucky to be there when projects like this, which are difficult projects to pull off, which require enormous amounts of love and attention on the part of the writer and the director and the crew. It's the kind of project which is not normally suitable for a major studio. It doesn't fit the mold. It doesn't fit the sort of picture that the studio feels comfortable with, but they feel comfortable once the picture's made and picking it up for North American distribution. That's just what I do. So this was one of those lucky events.
Are you forming crumbs right now into a sandwich?
Well, I'm always looking about. I'm always crawling around the floor looking for the odd crumb. Yes, sure, always, yeah. We've got a few things that we're working on.
He's better than that.
He's much better than that, but he's just too modest to talk about it.
Let me just say this from my point of view, that Jake was very valuable, and that the studio system, the way it is, and the way money works these days, is so really fragile that it's not very dependable. So you take a project like this that's going to require a lot of time and care, you're always slightly nervous that something's going to collapse underneath your feet. So the journey of this particular project went like this. It started out with a relationship with myself and Garth Drabinsky, who's from here, in an effort to try to forge a new form of distribution for films like this, so that a filmmaker could come along and make the film that he or she wanted to make that might be risky, but it would go without a distributor. It would go right to the exhibitor, and the exhibitor would be the financer. And I thought that was a dream deal. So I got together with Garth, and I said, there's some pictures I'd like to make, and this is the one that's the most important. I don't think it's a picture a studio would get behind. He said, I'll do it if you make it for a low enough budget. And I said that indeed I wanted to do that. So we started, and then his company collapsed. And it collapsed so that the financing that was supposedly in place for me to do it collapsed with it. It then had to be shifted. When the deal was shifted, nobody was really interested in the deal that I had with Garth because they didn't own theaters. So therefore, it had to be altered. So all the while I was trying to work with Richard on the script, this shaky underpinning was happening. And so Corelco came in and they said, we'll do it if you'll act in something. I said, okay. It meant that much that I would. So then we started there. And the money did not come easily, because you got the bureaucracy of money, which is always hard. So people had to be paid, they couldn't be paid, and so forth. It went through the same struggle most independent filmmakers go through. Finally, as this was going, we were getting our money, getting into production, it was clear to me that we were not being told the truth, that this was a company that was not going to be in business, and that if I really cared about this project enough, I better be doing something about protecting its future or its stability. I had known about Jake as a man of integrity and honesty, who also really had his hands on money. He could deliver. And so I gambled that this was all true. So I contacted him and was happy to find out that he not only was willing to do it, but he loved the project because he had tried to get it for himself. So right there we had a connection that was very workable. Since that time, I'd just like to express my gratitude for Jake because he has been stand-up on every issue. There's never been a second's delay or pause for money that was needed, and any decisions that that I needed to make, he was 100% behind, never questioned them. So that's the other end of his story.
I'll pay later.
I'd like to ask Mr. Redford, you were the executive producer on Errol Morris feature, and I'm wondering what happened to that. Are there plans to come out?
You'd have to ask Corelco. That's buried in the Corelco collapse. I don't know what the state of it is. I don't know whether it'll ever come out or sometime come out. I just don't know.
Yes, sir.
Emily, did you audition for the part of Jesse?
I did read for him. I think it was more for the accent, because I think, you know, obviously he wanted him do a Midwestern accent, which I'd never done before. And I think we sort of discussed the character, and did we talk? I can't remember if you...
Not a lot.
I
wanted her, and the question was, could she pull off the Montana accent, which she does beautifully. And that was really the only issue. I felt that she had the qualities that I was looking for.
My grandfather's in fact Scottish, so I had some affinity with Jessie because of that. And my mother's half Scottish, and I love the Scotch, so that helped.
Wonderful job with the accent, and that's why
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Emily, Craig, and Brad how they see the family values incarnated in the film, what it meant to them to play this role. Anyone?
Sorry, what was the question? I forgot to hear what you said. What did you say?
How you saw the family values, the traditional values that were being communicated in the film, what it meant for you to play this, whether it was just a museum piece or something represented perhaps by your grandparents.
I liked it. I don't know about guys, but I loved playing Jessie because I thought she was very strong and very supportive of, in that time, I mean, especially her family, of the men and of the male figures without being subservient or deferring to the male. But at the same time, it was like there was a sort of camaraderie. Is that right? Camaraderie? Yeah, camaraderie between Jessie and Norman, you know, that continued through the rest of their life. That's what I think.
I appreciated there was an economy with words that I think also that Norman wrote from, that the scenes Richard created also drew off of. At that time, an economy of words where today, where so much is thrown on the table, whether it's valuable or not, there was just more power in the unspoken word, I think, and there was more value in that, and that's what I appreciated most.
As far as family values, I don't know. I think the thing for me that hit me was communication. You know, I mean, like even with, especially with the brother relationship. You know, I've got a brother, and we're like polar opposites, and we don't really. We have a lot of communication problems, and for me, it got to the point where I really, you know, I understood after the film that you get one life, and you have so much time, and you better say what you got to say because you don't know how long somebody will be around, and it's worth that risk because it's not easy to communicate. You know, so I think that it kind of, I don't think the film is about morality, but I think it exposes certain things that kind of can help you communicate better.
My family's the opposite. We communicate too much. We don't shut up.
Speaking of communicating, I'm sorry, the photographers, it's difficult for us to communicate with your shooting going on, so would you mind stopping for a few minutes?
Till the green spots clear away.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Redford, you mentioned you had other projects making. Can you tell us something about those, and do they all have a certain message? Because all your films do have a serious intent.
Well, I'm kind of superstitious about that. And so not to be mysterious or duck your question, I'd just soon not talk about something that hasn't happened yet, but stick with what is, if you don't mind.
Then why you always want to make films a serious subject and not just commercial?
Well, I don't go, I mean, this whole business of commercial or not commercial or serious or not serious doesn't enter my mind as much as just something I want to do. It's really as simple as that, and whatever message is in it. I mean, obviously I'm intensely interested in the politics of our country and any forces that shape my life as an individual or alter my path, I'm going to be interested in. And that has a lot to do with the material I choose and why. It's usually always a matter of the heart for me. And that was the case with this project, and will be the case of projects I do after this. But they'll be varied like they have been in the past, but there's never a project taken just for the message, because I don't believe in it. I don't believe film really succeeds in doing that. I think film, the only thing film can really affect is fashion. So I don't attempt something just to make a message, political or otherwise. On the other hand, if I have strong feelings about something involving politics and I want to say something about it, I will.
Do you have anything to say on the elections coming up?
Well, I think it's time to get rid of this administration. I think they've done enough damage.
Vote Clinton.
Yeah.
There are a couple of, I see a number of hands.
Mr. Redford, you were mentioning about independent filmmakers. There's got to be at least a dozen or maybe 24 films at this festival alone that thank Sundance and the work that you've done in promoting independent film. Your name's on Incident at Oglala. I just was wondering if you could comment about your involvement in, you're stepping back from the Hollywood scene and making more important films, or films that you feel stronger about. Something like Incident at Oglala is a far step away from what Capacity and the Sundance did.
Well, I'm very happy that Sundance is being acknowledged, because maybe in the end that's the final reward, is just some acknowledgement for what you have tried to do. And what Sundance is about is development. It's not about us being involved in the product. The product is up to somebody else. Our involvement has been to help new people develop their skills so that more films of a diverse nature will get into the marketplace, and try to keep alive the idea of independence against forces that seem to be moving towards more centralized. The industry is very much centralized for the most part at the moment. It's very expensive, most of the films are. And a lot of the films are dependent on a lot of high technology, which is all fine. It's a broad industry that accommodates that. I personally am interested in films that are more humanitarian in nature and deal with the complex issues that face all of our lives on a more psychological basis. So for Sundance to sponsor films and the filmmakers, what we sponsor are the filmmakers, not just their projects. It pleases me to see the product arrive in festivals or get into the marketplace. That's a kind of, as far as I'm concerned, a success. And to be acknowledged for it is also great. So I'm happy to see that. As far as I'm concerned, and me personally, there's nothing really. I mean, if you look back over my own personal history in film, there's not a lot that's changed. It's pretty much always been that way. There have been small films and some larger films. Documentaries I've narrated and produced for almost 20 years. Just not many people know about it. And Incident at Oglala, I got out to promote because I felt it was involving an issue so important in our society at this time about whether or not there was a double standard in our system of justice, and particularly as it related to a minority and a Native American in this case. So that's why I went out for it. But I will always want to be doing things like that. Nothing's really changed, or is it going to change? The idea is that we live in a very wide industry, and that's what makes it stable, and I'm happy to be in it, and I'm happy to make commercial films that a lot of people come and see, and I'm happy to make the films that are more risky, that might provoke some thought.
Question in the back, Madame, yes?
You have to overcome a lot of hurdles to make it. You watch it, it's so important for you to tell it.
For reasons that I've already mentioned, there were enough elements in it that merged together to make it something I really wanted to do. I wanted to tell a story that incorporated the elements of environment, part of our country that I think is very, very special, and a way of life that supposedly helped form the strength of our country. And also it dealt with, as I said, matters of the heart and relationships, interpersonal relationships within a family, dealing with tough subjects like what you talk about and what you don't talk about, and how that's going to affect the nature of a family's development. Those were all issues that interested me. They were all incorporated into one piece of material. And finally was the idea that it's sort of gone out of fashion that words could have real dramatic and powerful meaning in a film, and that was very challenging to have words play the part almost of a character within the film. And in this case, I thought the words were so special, and the language was of such a special nature that I I enjoyed the idea of trying to make that work within the film.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask about fly fishing. I assume Mr. Redford is fly fishing. Did everybody else in the film have to learn fly fishing? Quickly, or how long do you spend on the actual fly fishing as a cast?
Casting or digging hooks out of the back of your head. Right? Jeez. I guess we started about 2 weeks before we went up to Montana.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 weeks up in Montana to get started. And then we had some lifers up there, some people who really knew the sport to carry us along the way. But it started out, I think the first attempt was on top of the production building down in Santa Monica without a hook.
With a metronome?
No metronome.
Did everybody have the same experience, or is it just you?
No, Brad and I.
Chef and I.
Brad and I. Yeah.
Chef and I.
Brad.
Chef and I.
Tom?
What?
Are you
Same experience? Yeah, essentially the same experience.
Maybe you're, to answer your question fully, maybe Pat Markey could talk about what, we all tried to follow the line of the book. I mean, the book was so incredibly critical of anyone that didn't. Anybody that was a bait fisherman was not even to be talked about. And the author happened to be very critical. He almost judged people by their ability to fly fish. So maybe Pat could talk about
we had a number
what we went
of people who worked with us as consultants on the fly fishing. One guy named John Bailey, who was primarily in charge of getting the casts in shape so that we could pull off the fact that they looked like lifelong fly fishermen, even though they were just learning.
Speak up, please. We can't hear.
Okay. We had a number of experts who worked with us, fly fishing people from various areas within the industry. Orvis, which is the big tackle manufacturer, provided us some expertise. Trout Unlimited, which is an organization that of trout fishermen around the world, were very much involved with us. And we wanted to get it right. We were real worried about not overwhelming the film with fly fishing and making it sort of a tutorial on fly fishing, which some people interpret the book to be, although most of us think it's not. But it's important to get what is in there right, and we worked quite hard on that. We also had special people who handled the fish to make sure that we didn't injure or kill any of them. So the technical stuff behind all that took quite a bit of planning and expertise. But our actors learned very quickly. As a matter of fact, the guys who taught them were amazed at how fast they picked it up, and they're used to teaching fly fishing seminars to just people who want to learn. And they'd never seen people approach fly fishing with the intensity that the actors did because they were so interested in learning it for their characters. So for our fly fishing guys, they were quite impressed with how quickly the actors adapted to it.
I saw in the credits a mention of a period fly tyer.
Yeah, there's a fellow who's actually mentioned in the book, a friend of Norman, lifelong friend of the McLean family, who learned to tie flies from the Reverend. He's a fellow in his 70s now, still lives in Montana. And we brought him over to where we were shooting. He tied all the flies in the book, or in the movie, which they tie flies a lot differently today than they did back then. He was also very helpful to us as far as period wardrobe. The approach to fishing has changed quite a bit over the last 30 or 40 years. And George Friedenberg was able to keep us honest about how the McLeans actually did it back in the 20s and 30s.
The guys fishing, by the way, if I can just say one thing as director of this, is a matter of personal pride to me. Obviously, these guys had to look like they had practically been born with this and had to have it be second nature. And that's no easy task to take a sport that is highly refined as fly fishing and make it look like it's a part of you. And I think it's particular credit to both these guys, as you can see for yourself in the film, that they not only succeeded, but they went a step beyond to make you absolutely convinced that had been a part of their life. That, for me, was a particular success of the film.
Did you have a question, Madame? Yes.
Yes. Is there one particular incident that is probably the most memorable for any of you, basically, during the filming of this movie that we may or may not see on screen?
Sending the money. Very memorable.
I guess he speaks for all of us.
Okay, food for thought.
Marcos.
Such a totally wonderful experience. I don't know how you isolate anything.
Yeah, it was all wonderful. There was lovely moments all the time.
Full, rich experience.
Tom must remember the day that we were working with the littlest boy who Bob had cast, a 6-year-old boy. This little cute guy who plays Paul and he was a local Montanan, and he had never acted before, and he was a really little kid. He had trouble, staying on the mark for more than a few minutes at a time. His mind would wander. He was a little kid, and it's really interesting to watch because it's very hard to tell how much of this he understood was a play and how much of it was real, because we were shooting the oatmeal scene. If you've seen the film, Tom is trying to get him to eat oatmeal, and in one take Tom went like this, "Eat your oatmeal," and the little kid burst into tears, and he cried for joy, afraid of Tom. That was memorable.
Sir?
Mr. Redford, Billy Crystal and Tim Robbins are both here with films. They both star and direct. Have you ever considered directing yourself in a motion picture?
No.
Quick?
Yes?
It's for Richard and Mr. Redford. There's a scene right near the end of the film where the son is attending the last sermon, or near the last sermon of the father in the church. There seemed to be an ambiguity there. I don't know if it was intentional or not. Were we supposed to believe that he never did go off to Chicago, that he remained there and married and raised children, or that he was just there for the weekend or whatever?
There's a line in the film that says, "Before we left for Chicago."
There is.
You weren't listening.
So when you get the call from the police station in the morning before Jesse and I left for Chicago, I woke and I asked no questions. That's a line in the film.
The fact is that Norman spent his entire adult life in Chicago, and every single summer until he was too ill to travel, he returned to Montana without fail and stayed at Sealy Lake and fished.
And what did each or both of you see as the chief dramatic conflict in the film? It's a beautiful looking and beautiful sounding film. I'm wondering what you saw as the chief. Is it just the interfamilial relationships that is the conflict?
Yes, how people were shaped by the ethic of physical force of the river and the environment and the father's instruction and the way of life, the ethic of the time and place that one character survived by leading and the other character couldn't get past. Both achieved what the father wanted them to achieve in terms of grace. One achieved it on the river and in physical abilities. The other achieved it more through scholastic pursuits by leaving and surviving. In there is the dramatic conflict. Within that are a lot of subtopics about expressing emotions and what you can talk about, what you can't talk about, and how that affects your lives and so forth.
Joe?
Yes, Craig, I wonder if you could compare and contrast for me the differences working with a director like Mr. Redford's background comes from acting to, say, someone like Clive Barker, who's more of a visual stylist, assume more attention to the narrative line.
Well, Clive gave more direction to the people who were made of rubber. No, as far as Bob goes, it's when you're working with an actor, they understand what we go through, and the main thing I've said when people have asked me this is, and you probably can't understand it unless you're an actor, but when you ask for another take and you get it, it's a gift, or you don't have a director roll his eyes at you, because Bob's a perfectionist and I'm a perfectionist, and unless I feel like I've hit what I want to hit in a scene, I'm not happy, and I don't remember a time when I asked for another take that I didn't get it, and to me that's a real gift, so that I can feel complete with every scene I do. And also, just in terms of preparation, most films you work on, a lot of films, the director, we really don't even talk about the characters, but we don't talk about the character arcs, what points we want to hit, going to a certain point and coming down, you know what I mean, so that you have a roundness to your character and a completion to it. And, we had discussed that. We worked for 2 weeks before that and discussed it nonstop, and that's a real gift to be able to go into a role and feel like you have an idea of where your character is going, and that the director knows where you're going as well. So, that's it.
Sorry, you were next.
I found that your film story and the way it characterized the women, there was more diversity in the female characters than in the original story, who were either Scottish women folk to be feared and admired, or women with no social status, such as the prostitutes. Whereas in your film, I think there's more diversity there, but it's true to that era and people's attitudes and prejudices. So I wanted to ask Mr. Redford and Mr. Friedenberg how you made certain decisions about being true to that era at the same time of trying to be more sensitive to the depictions of women, and particularly that one Indian woman who in the novel is so much more raw image of her in the original novel.
There was very little time. That's a really interesting question. There was very little time to accommodate all the characters with what we would like to do. I would have loved to have developed Jessie more, developed Mona Sita more, the Indian woman. There simply wasn't enough time unless we would be willing to distract from the main theme of the brothers. The brothers were the main issue in their relationship with their father. And as tempting as it was, what you were forced to do was sort of deliver with brushstrokes a lot. You had to suggest a great deal with very short strokes. I think it's interesting because, I really do appreciate accuracy a lot. I like to be as accurate as I can, and yet at the same time, being completely accurate to what was written, which was very little, would have left us pretty empty in spots. The mother was hardly developed at all. Jessie literally existed in such short shrift that she had to be invented in spots.
Sir?
So as you're inventing,
Excuse me.
Yeah.
No, please go. I'm sorry.
Okay. As you're doing this, you can't help but incorporate a little bit of what you feel today about what's happened to the role of women in society. The fact is that those were times when women had to defer their strengths in their adoration of the man. They deferred a lot of their strength to the shadows. And we wanted to sort of illustrate the strength of women in this film without overdoing it or sensationalizing it or distorting what was. So that was a very fine line to tread.
You have to remember that the 20s was a great time of liberation for women. They just won the vote. Jessie was a flapper. She was a high liver. She drove a car by herself, and she drank, and she went to college, and she did what she pleased. And perhaps it's a misconception that all women were sort of downtrodden in the 20s. It was a time of Zelda Fitzgerald. And Jessie was definitely a modern woman, as opposed to the Reverend's wife, who was not a modern woman. She was a woman of the 19th century. And I think that great gulf existed between the two.
Bill?
I also wondered, I have not read the story, but I like the film very much. I wondered if it's not necessary for the film or the story to answer this question, but I wondered with the upbringing of the two boys, if somebody might suggest if in the story there is any more reason for Paul's drinking problem and some of the things that happen there. It's the only thing that disturbed me a little bit about of just trying to understand the characters because of the upbringing they had and the close to nature and the listening to the sounds of the water and all that. I just wondered
the reason.
Because of the territory that there's very little to do and
Yeah.
often develop. But it bothered me a little bit, but not.
I always wondered too.
But I didn't feel that it had any answer.
It is not answered. I asked Norman. Joel asked Norman. Everybody asked Norman. Norman said what he intended to say about his brother after 40 years of not saying anything, and he wrote it in A River Runs Through It. And no number of questions or number of questioners would elicit more of a response than what he gave.
But Brad said something on I thought was pretty interesting, and I don't know if you remember it or not, but on this TV thing you got, studio puts out. It's what they call an EPK, whatever. It's about a maybe 7 or 8 minute promo piece where they talk about the film and so forth. And Brad was asked about the character of Paul, and in that particular issue, do you remember what he got past? What you tell us, please?
Well, first of all, I besides Paul, I felt like the reason for the book was understanding that you didn't have to understand everything, that there was a piece to that, there's something flowing underneath, moving things along, and that can give you can draw a piece from that. That's personal. So I was very happy with that, actually. It made me comfortable, made me sleep at night. But as far as Paul, you grow up and certain values are put upon you, and without options sometimes in particular families, and I think this was the case. And as it can turn out, is that other things can start leading you in another direction. You can feel yourself going in another direction. You don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't think Paul understood it. But something is pulling you away from family values, the set family ways. So now you're living two lives, and they don't hook up because it's not spoken. And there's always this conflict in between, which for me, if an acceptance does not come over, that can lead in self-destruction. Is that what I said then?
Yeah.
Thank God.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Madame, yes?
You tried to produce a film about the life of Chico Mendes in Brazil. Did you quit with the idea of shooting in Amazonia?
Did I quit?
The idea of shooting in Amazonia?
No, that had to be put on hold. It got to that was a project that I'd been developing. I'd been developing a rainforest project since 1981, and it was very hard to get any support for it. The idea of, because I was going to act in it and produce it, and play a villain, play a developer who goes down to the rainforest. It was very hard to get support for the idea of me being a villain in the Amazon. So it struggled along for years and years, and then when the Chico Mendes thing happened and it became a cause célèbre, suddenly everybody and their brother was diving into the issue, trying to get rights and so forth. And it got so complicated and became such a circus that I really put that project on hold. I hope it gets made by somebody, but I got bothered by the kind of circus effects the whole issue took on there for a while.
One last question, sir, in the middle.
A lot of people here are honored that you chose this festival to have a world premiere of your film. Can you just comment on some of the reasons you had in your mind for having films in this?
I was told it was the best place to get a lot of press together in one. No, it's a good festival. It's a wonderful festival, and so that's good enough reason right there. It's a good city and a good festival.
Thank you very much.